Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. We've got some great people for you today. We've got the co-founder of CaringCrowd, proudly sponsored by Johnson & Johnson, John Brennick. They're a sponsor of the show. We're thrilled to have them. And a special guest, Sophia Monaghan. She's a researcher and project manager at Project Mercy. And we're talking about her crowdfunding efforts on CaringCrowd to raise money for women in Ethiopia. You don't want to miss this special episode.
Welcome to the Your Mark on the World show with your champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
This episode is made possible via the support of our sponsors, including Johnson & Johnson's CaringCrowd. John, Sophia, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
We're thrilled to have you both here. John, why don't you take 30 seconds to get us warmed up? What's CaringCrowd?
So CaringCrowd is like the Kickstarter for global public health, and it's entirely paid for by Johnson & Johnson. So it's a service for the world, so we don't charge anything for its use. And occasionally there are even matching funds available. And profits that get on the site can justifiably brag a little that they passed review and were able to get on the site.
That's great. It is a great, well-screened, curated platform where only the great projects get on. And Sophia, your projects have been on. You had 2 projects successfully funded on the project on the site. Tell us a little bit about the projects that you've raised money for on the site.
Yeah, so they're both focused around mental health and mental health stigma, specifically in Ethiopia. The original one was to raise money for me to actually go and do the research and get this kind of started because it's really something that's never been done in rural Ethiopia. And the second one that we just completed, I think just about a week ago, we met our goal, and that was to provide psychiatric services for the women that I worked with for the past 9 months. So
we often think, Sophia, of people in the developing world, in Ethiopia, as suffering from a variety of deprivations, lack of adequate food, water, shelter. And that, of course, isn't universal, but there are people in Ethiopia who are experiencing that. We rarely think about mental health. I don't know why we assume that all Ethiopians are mentally healthy when we know a third of the people around us here are in the United States are not mentally healthy.
Right.
What is the mental health landscape in Ethiopia right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question right now. I think a lot of people say, maybe that's a first world problem, but at the same time, mental health impacts so much more than just your brain, right? Because it can affect your ability to work. So it affects women and men both economically. It affects children's ability to go to school if they're not being given the right attention and treatment. And so the ripple effects of mental health are actually impacting these bigger problems we think of, like education and even like access to food and safe water and healthcare. So it spans everything, and it definitely exists in Ethiopia as a problem that needs to be tackled.
John, as you look at the sort of the pantheon of projects that have been successfully funded on CaringCrowd, how does Sophia's project fit in?
That's a great question, because it was very interesting that Sophia actually paved a way for a different type of project on CaringCrowd. We hadn't, her first campaign project, we hadn't had one on CaringCrowd like it before, and so there was discussion behind the scenes. So she's paved the way there as well as in her work in Ethiopia. And while we have had more and more mental health projects on CaringCrowd, many of them have been focused on the US, and so this was groundbreaking also in that area of Ethiopia.
Sophia, tell us a little bit about your personal experience in Ethiopia. You went 9 months ago. How long did you stay and what did you do? And then maybe give us a sense of what you've done since to build on that experience.
Yeah, so I was there for 9 months. I actually just got back about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So
That's a
I'm
long time to be in
I
Ethiopia.
yeah, I really assimilated.
That's good.
Went, head first in, and it was unbelievable. I mean, you just think of culture shock and going to a developing country in Africa. I'd never been to Africa, and then going to a rural community with, very little access, no access to internet. And I kind of said, I'm just going to go all in. And the community there was unbelievable. I worked, besides being in the hospital, there were 29 orphans that the NGO I was with sponsors and cares for. Orphans are from broken families, and I became a part of that family also. And so in terms of my personal experience, it was so much more than just a research project. It was a small piece of my life now.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure it is. As you think about the women you were helping, clearly your follow-up campaign has been to raise money for some mental health care for them. Right. Tell us about their needs and what you hope to accomplish with the funding.
Yeah. So like I said before, it's something that really had never even been brought up as a topic of conversation. It's very stigmatized. Hospitals, especially in the rural area, focus primarily on physical. So I had to, gently introduce it to the nurses who didn't really know what this was. And they were very, very slow to take it on. They were constantly saying, we don't cry in this culture. Women are strong. I would see the women come in, and these women are strong women, right? They're walking 4 hours down the mountain with, a load of hay on their back to get to market. And they're unbelievable, but they're only human, right? And so they still have those chemical processes and hormonal processes after giving birth that are, regardless of how strong you are, they can affect every woman. And so I think the biggest challenge was getting the nurses, the healthcare staff to see this is not a first world problem. This is a human problem. And this is a woman problem after she has a baby. And so the landscape is hopefully changing, but it's very difficult to navigate when it's such a new thing for them to understand.
John, how do you feel as you look at not only this project, but all of the projects on CaringCrowd, and you feel a sense of ownership in their success?
Yes, we've had 173 successful campaigns in the short history of CaringCrowd, so it's growing. And we desperately want everyone to succeed and have a positive experience. So I talk to everyone who wants to use CaringCrowd and set them up for success, and tell them a little bit about what crowdfunding takes. And from your course that you teach, and which I've taken, which is excellent, that there are things to know about crowdfunding. So that has led to our more than 80% campaign success rate on the platform.
Well, it is something to be proud of, to see the huge impact that the platform is having. It's a great way to leverage and expand the impact and the capability of Johnson & Johnson that way. So very cool. I'm grateful that Johnson & Johnson would sponsor that, and CaringCrowd sponsors my work. But Sophia, what are you most proud of having accomplished?
I would say the access of a voice for these women. So for the first time, probably for the first time in their lives, they were asked, legitimately, how do you feel? How are you feeling? And I talk about this, but there's a word in Amharic, which is the Ethiopian language, and the word is aizosh. And any Ethiopian you would ask, it's the most common word in the language, and it means be brave or suck it up. And so people don't say, how are you, right? They say, things are good, right? It's, people aren't genuinely saying, are you hurting? Are you upset? And if they ask you, are you okay? You say, I'm fine, right? And we have that in the US. But I think the first chance for these women to say, I'm actually not okay, and to give them a chance to voice that, and to also be creating a future opportunity for them to get help when the answer is, I'm not okay.
Yeah, well, it's such important work. John, you've been helping these hundreds now, almost, but many, many dozens of successful projects. What's the most important lesson you've learned about crowdfunding?
Well, you need the crowd, so you can't just throw it out there. I think this is the most important tactic, is lining up those pledgers to get that strong starting momentum, provide that social validation so that 20 to 30% of your goal is funded in the first 48 hours, and have a plan for the rest. And, get that percent funded higher. And as it gets higher, more and more people want to help.
It is magic how people want to be a part of something successful. No one wants to be part of a losing effort. So yeah, you've got to create some momentum towards success, or you won't get there. It's an interesting lesson. So, Sophia, I'm intrigued by your background. You've done so many interesting things. You've lived all around the world. Why do you care the way you care? Why are you worried about mental health among women in Ethiopia? I mean, golly, you're an athlete. You could be playing sports, right?
Yeah. I think it's one of those things that, it comes out and touches you more than you feel like you have a role in it. When I was 12, actually, a representative from Doctors Without Borders came and spoke at my school. And since that day, I knew I wanted to do global health, just because the values of impartiality and neutrality and serving everyone, not if they're just a part of your group or, your people. And that's what they strive to do. And I think that set me on a course. My junior year at Stanford, I took a class called Critical Issues in International Women's Health. And that's where I was introduced to this problem of mental health. And John's heard this, but there was a sentence in the book we were reading that our professor had actually written, which is a classic Stanford thing. And it said, nearly every critical issue women face over the course of a lifetime is associated with mental illness. And that just, for me, was like, hold on, what? And looking into it and seeing, but wait a second, nobody's doing anything about this, was just, it kind of started my brain thinking and my engine going. And I said, how can this be such a huge impact? And everybody is so focused on the physical aspects, which is important for survival. But, there's another step to take, and there's a new route to go down. And the UN just included mental well-being in their Sustainable Development Goals for 2030, I believe, which is the first time they've done that. So people are starting to pay attention, but it was just something that grabbed a hold of me. And I said, what can I do to get here and to do this? And that was about 3 years ago now. And here I am.
Wow. Well, we're glad you have done that. John, what is your superpower?
Oh, well, you've asked me that before, and I thought about it some more. So I keep going with this power of people connecting. So it's the power of the crowd. It's the power of humanity. I think what really sets apart humans from other animals is that we can work together in large groups more flexibly. So if we channel that and our desires to be part of a world community, then we can really make some great changes happen.
Yeah. ants, bees, they work tremendously well together to do exactly what they've done over and over and over again for eons. Humans can go to the next level by working together. Very interesting insight. Very interesting.
That connecting power. Yeah. I like to connect.
Sophia, what is your superpower?
I would say probably empathy. I think it was something that I was given as a gift, but it allowed me to, go into a culture that I had no idea about. And I've done this, I've lived in different cultures. And so I had the experience to go in and start from ground zero and be with these women who grew up in an environment that I have no idea about. They're having problems that I have no idea about. I've never, had a baby, had postpartum mood disorder, and yet their problem was my problem. And I felt such a desire to help them and to care for them. And that's not, something that I have kind of learned or developed. It's just something that I was gifted with.
It's what a wonderful superpower.
Pretty cool. I'm a lucky girl.
Yeah, that is a powerful superpower. Well, Sophia, John, I thank you both for taking the time to be with us today. We're grateful for the great work you're doing. Before you go, I'd like each of you, maybe John, we can start with you and then turn to Sophia to tell people how they can learn more about what you're doing and how they can connect with you on social media.
Thanks. You can email help@CaringCrowd.org or go to CaringCrowd.org and check it out. Just click on Create a Project, scan through the projects, and absolutely feel free to ask for a phone call. I'd be very happy to talk with you.
Oh, fantastic. And Sophia?
Yeah, I guess, I don't have a huge social media presence with my research, but I did keep a blog for 9 months detailing my experiences, and that is at themercyexperience.wordpress.com. If anyone would like to look at that. I'm on Facebook at Sophia Monaghan, but that's, not research related. But.
Great. And if someone wants to reach you, do you have an email address where they can?
Yes. Yeah. It's so S Monaghan, but without the N, S Monaghan at alumni.stanford.edu.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, Sophia, John, thank you so much for being with us today. We wish you every success in continuing to address the tremendous problems facing the world in global health.
Yeah, thank you so much. You too.
Yeah. All righty. Let's do some good.
At Caring Crowd, we believe everyone has the power to make a difference. Through our crowdfunding platform for community health, we empower passionate people to drive real change. Whether you work for a nonprofit organization, volunteer, or want to get involved for the first time, you can post a campaign on Caring Crowd. Join us, because caring is where change begins.
Thank you for listening. Devin Thorpe's mission is to end extreme poverty, improve global health, and mitigate climate change before 2045 by finding and sharing the stories of those who are doing the most good. You can join with other listeners to accelerate Devin's mission by visiting helpdevin.org right now.